Does Blizzard disrespect WoW lore? That's a good question. I sometimes feel like some of the lore makes no sense or there are like some contradictions. Alright, let's have a look at what Doronsmovies has to say about that.
So a big discussion has been going on these past few years, and especially lately, with the community, and that is in regards to how much Blizzard really values the lore at this point. Now, let's be real, for all of us that have followed the story for 2 decades plus, it isn't all that controversial to say that the lore has really not been all that great these past few expansions. Even in Dragonflight, we have the Centaur, for example, that completely contradict the previously established lore. With the counters and inconsistencies, things that don't make sense, lore twisted to fit gameplay, let's break down the discussion whether Blizzard really disrespects the lore or whether this has been a thing since the start of the World of Warcraft franchise.
What I actually believe is that also like the team, like people are also being replaced and stuff, right? Like some of the Blizzard employees, they left and there were like new people hired, new people join a team. This person gets this task or this kind of character with a backstory. This person gets this character. So I'm pretty sure by like always like new developers coming in and writers and this and that, like I'm actually very positive that this also affects it. So let's say you have like an old developer that worked 10 plus years ago then wrote something or designed a character. Then a year ago a new person was hired and took his place basically. Like this person has a different background and understanding of the law than the other one, right? So that's probably what's going on.
Break down the discussion whether Blizzard really disrespects the lore or whether this has been a thing since the start of the World of Warcraft franchise. As you guys might have seen, I've been using Prime Gaming for quite some time, and this month's offering might be the best one yet, as you can get the Crown of Eternal Winter in World of Warcraft, but only for a limited time. Just a reminder guys, it is super simple to claim. Just go to the Prime Gaming website, go to World of Warcraft, connect your account, and claim the drop. As you can see, I got the Crown of Eternal Winter right in the game. Outside of just World of Warcraft, there is a bunch of in-game content for 30 plus titles. You can get an exotic bundle drop for Destiny, an ultimate premium Gwent cake, and 3 loot boxes for Overwatch. Plus, you can sub to your favorite streamer every single month on Twitch. And best of all, there is a new, fresh monthly content all the time with
Pokemon
Prime Gaming. So make sure to click the link in the description and claim the Crown of Eternal Winter, as it will only be available for the next few days. And check out Prime Gaming as it has amazing offerings, so level up with Prime Gaming.
You know what? I actually think this crown doesn't look that bad if you're playing, let's say, a Frost Mage, right?
The reality is that Warcraft started as an RTS, and when you think about it, actually it started as a pretty simple storyline.
Yeah,
the
strategy
bad
game.
versus the good guys, aliens invading the noble human kingdoms, defending themselves. Then they realized things were getting popular, this series is getting successful, so Blizzard started adding more and more depth into the entire storyline. And then with Warcraft 3, we got the nuance of the orcs and how they were corrupted, the Burning Legion, the story about this, and all the other iconic bits of the lore. However, when Blizzard decided to go the MMORPG route, this was a pretty big shift for the overall storyline. It is one thing to write a story for a game that you can finish in a few days, and it is another to maintain a good storyline for 2 decades across the books and the comics and the actual game, while you have millions of...
And you have the change internally of like developers, like I said earlier. So the older a game gets, the more likely it is that some people that wrote something just disappear. Either by like leaving the company, by becoming pensioners or something, like who knows, maybe there were some older folks involved too. No, but seriously, like the longer something drags on, it's also possible that some people maybe even forget certain things. Oh, what did we do there 10 years ago when we added this NPC or quest? What was his name again? And what was like the backstory? Wait, wasn't he from Draenor? Oh wait, is he from Ashara? Where is he from? Like, I'm pretty sure that some people even forget like small details of what they did like in the game 10 years ago or something. Like imagine like having a character and this person is like from Draenor and then suddenly he's from Ashara or something. It's like I can see this happen, like seriously. And by the way guys, if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content.
live players constantly online, so you got to balance out the enjoyment of the game while at the same time making a good storyline. Now, straight out of the bat, I gotta say, Blizzard has done a really good job for a portion of this time, and there were always inconsistencies, but it wasn't always all that bad. This was mainly because there were multiple writers making storylines, some things were kind of caught in the in-between, but there was overall a pretty consistent narrative. Although, let's be real, there was still a bunch of retcons even back then, although not nearly to the current extent. For example, we had the RPG books and a lot of comics that ended up being completely non-canon, so that was
unfortunately
meaningless.
Some were
cool.
A
bunch of really vague things that Blizzard decided to sort out by releasing the Chronicle books, which were supposed to be the encyclopedia of the Warcraft franchise. Back then, this was an excellent idea, and we finally got some really concrete information on who created the universe, who are the old gods, who are the void lords, the titans. Things started finally getting some consistency. Well, this was the case for like a moment, as after this, things started going downhill pretty bad. My opinion is that this started with Worlds of Draenor when Blizzard decided to go with this alternate timeline thing, and this really messed up the lore big time.
No, I'm actually thinking the opposite here. I think Warlords of Draenor was a nice filler because we didn't learn too much about the Orcs past, like in TBC, and that's probably also because of back in the day, like making games and stuff was like even more complex than it is today, and maybe they had like limited resources also at that time. But even if you do like the quest line in TBC, and some zones are very interesting, it's nice what some NPCs have to say. I feel like the true background of the orcs, like the mecha orcs and all, was not really delivered as much with Outlands. And plus, like, Outland is kind of like not really the entirety of Draenor, but like parts of Draenor, because like most was like, it was like destroyed, right? And it's like in Twisting Nether and all that. Like, it's very complex with Outland, right? But the true backstory and the traditions and values of the orcs and everything was, in my opinion, delivered with Warlords of Draenor to learn more about it. Same with the Draenei. You see the uncorrupted Draenei in, I would say, nature. You see like the OG Draenei in freaking Draenor and stuff, and you learn more about them too. So for especially like the Draenei and for the orcs, I think Warlords of Draenor was what was like needed to actually fill the gap of information, right? But we got like a lot of information, and it's kind of like, okay, Warlords of Draenor is there, out to the timeline, and then it's over. And now in the future, we see nothing of Draenor, unfortunately. Like, yeah, I wish it would still play a more important role, or we can still get back to Draenor at some point. Like, how about a Warlords of Draenor Part 2 expansion, where we have to freaking save Grommash Hellscream, like older Grommash Hellscream or something. Like, it would be cool to actually get back there in the future and not have this one continent, an alternate dimension that we visit, then it's over, we hear never ever anything again from them, we only get the allied race Mecha Orc, and that's it. It would be nice to actually get back there at some point.
Worlds of Draenor when Blizzard decided to go with this alternate timeline thing, and this really messed up the lore big time for the first time ever. We got some characters that were around in the alternate timeline but others weren't. Then we got the Burning Legion that passes through different timelines but also reaches us in the main one. So overall, just
okay, that's
big,
just confusing with the
confusion.
Legion, yeah.
After this, Blizzard released a few more Chronicle books, but these books ended up being completely useless, and they just completely defeated the purpose of their original creation, the actual idea why they wrote the Chronicles in the first place. For a time, this was evident that Blizzard wasn't exactly following their own writing, their own Bible, and then a few years later, they just came out and straight out said, yeah, this Chronicle thing is not really an encyclopedia, like, this is an encyclopedia from a Titan perspective, and these Titans are known to lie, so don't trust them. So essentially, this book is just BS. So all this lore that we believe that I personally made lore lessons on turned out to be completely useless, and this, in my opinion,
I do think this is a cool image though. What do we have here? We have the Titans, the Undead, the Burning Legion, Wild Gods, Holy, the Naru, Light, the Shadow, the Void. And here you see like some sort of connection, right? So the Shadow is connected, of course, with the Undead. Like, I think necromancy comes from the void, actually. I think that's actually cool to understand more about like the elements and light and darkness and all that.
Lessons on turned out to be completely useless, and this, in my opinion, is the biggest problem with WoW lore as it is. At the moment, there really is no concrete answer to anything. I mean, just seriously sit down and just think about it in depth. Like, think about the big forces, any sort of major power. It doesn't really have any sort of concrete foundation, and I feel like Blizzard can just switch switch out whatever they want at any time, as all this lore is just kinda floating in the air. We got the Titans, well, yeah, they're big, but they're only inherited the creations of the first ones, and they're also known to lie, so they may just be first one role players. We got the first ones that not a single person can give you an answer to who they are, and I honestly feel like Blizzard doesn't even know who they are. Then we have the Void Lords that were described as the biggest evil ever, but turns out they may not be so evil after all. There's multiple truths. We got the Light,
Oh yeah,
that used
the
to be
Void
the
Elves.
force that defeated the Lich King through sheer willpower, but now they're crazy lunatics pushing their mission and taking over planets, but they're also kind of the good guys at the same time. So I think you can see my point. It feels like there is no actual answer to anything, and everything can
is
just be
gray.
changed at any point to whatever they
There's
want
no
to do. This
light
of course, useful
or
for
darkness,
Blizzard, but
just
it doesn't
grayness.
really make the story all that interesting when you have no idea what is actually going on. Now, the second point, and in my opinion, the biggest offender for hurting the Warcraft lore is Shadowlands and BFA, and I didn't really count these expansions as one, as BFA was essentially
I feel like Shadowlands had potential, but it was cut sort of short. Like a lot of pieces are not so connected story-wise, or you have to like guess and do like many side quests and this and that to get a bit of understanding. I think they could have delivered it way better, and I'm not really big fan of including the afterlife of a fantasy game in a game. I think the afterlife should be more of a mystery, because it makes it not so interesting story-wise, right? Like, there's a place that is the afterlife in the World of Warcraft universe, and you can die in the afterlife too, and then what happens? Are you gone for good? Like, this is so weird. I would have loved to actually, instead of have Shadowlands, have Voidlands or something. Okay, that's a weird name, Voidlands. But that we are going to the Void or something, and there's Sylvanas or something. I think they should have not made Shadowlands, but something like Voidlands or the Void, whatever. Because we have been to like areas where the Legion is, but we have not been to areas where there's stuff with the Void. Except for maybe you could say like the Void Elf area, sort of, but that's not like a big zone, right?
just a setup for Shadowlands. Now, I'm not going to talk about the big bad robot jailer because all of you know this is not the best storyline of all time, but the biggest issue with Shadowlands that was evident since the start is that it was really not a smart expansion overall as a concept. Going into the Afterlife, in my opinion, completely demystified and made all the previous
Yes,
lore
I agree.
non-interesting.
Just said
I mean,
that.
how can any character or any sort of heroic sacrifice be interesting when we know that these guys just went into a different realm of the shard that we visited and that we can just go in and out of? I mean, for God's sake,
And
we're
you die there
friends with
again
the
if
actual
you
arbiter
can die
of the
there too.
Shadowlands that is like the god of Warcraft that decides where everyone is going to go in the Afterlife. Like, this guy knows us on like a first name basis. So a lot of these sacrifices don't really make any sense, and the previous storylines are just not that interesting with this new lore when everything changes, like the actual infrastructure. However, I would say all of this is really a symptom of a bigger problem, and that is the topic of this video, and that is the question whether Blizzard no longer respects their own lore. The biggest point here to make is that most people that made Warcraft lore and that made World of Warcraft what it is no longer work at the company, so most people creating today's storyline are just making up their own storyline without too much respect for the actual foundation what built the series. Now let's be real, Blizzard always prioritized gameplay over the lore, that is evident since day one, but I do feel like these past few years this shift became a lot more dramatic and lore changes became a lot more frequent. As I said, there have always been retcons and loose ends, but these past few years have been just more than ever before. I remember a few years ago, I really had to dig out to make a top 10 retcons list in all of Warcraft lore, but I easily came up with like 10 retcons just for Shadowlands alone, so yeah, that was quite a change. In my opinion, the biggest shift I have personally noticed is that before, when there was an inconsistency, Blizzard would go through a big effort to explain it, or they made some sort of a storyline that wasn't consistent, and they would then put a lot of work to have it make sense and to...
What I don't like is, as well, you need sometimes novels to understand the lore in WoW. It's kind of like, if you want to understand the whole world and what's going on, you need to buy a book as well, not just own the game and pay monthly a sub. Like, I think that's a bit weird. It feels kind of greedy, right? Like, imagine you're someone that wants to know about the lore and stuff, then you need to buy books and spend even more money as well to understand the world of a game. But some novels are actually fun to read and stuff, and they're interesting. But if you're not like the biggest fan of reading and you want to have like a story delivered to you and understand more, like you don't want to read a book about Sylvanas, you want to do a quest line in game and learn about Sylvanas, right? For example.
Not affect the overall narrative all that much. However, lately I feel like they just don't really care all that much to explain it. They just retcon stuff and they don't care about it. They would change the most iconic parts of the story at any moment, and they don't really go into any sort of effort to have it make sense. Best example of this are just a bunch of events in all the Shadowlands. Most importantly, they shoehorned this generic, boring villain, the Jailer, and just made him the guy behind everything, and then claimed that this was all a part of a 20-year-old saga. And to me, this is just sheer disrespect of the original material. I'm pretty sure Blizzard wasn't thinking of the Jailer when they created Ner'zhul, Arthas, had Vol'jin turn Sylvanas into the War Chief as the Loa whispered into his ear, or when they created the Dreadlords. Furthermore, they literally turned the most iconic helmet of the Lich King into the most generic helm possible and gave it to a completely new character in the Shadowlands that literally no one cares about. Then Arthas' soul ended up being destroyed by this character. Terrorship was burned because this character corrupted Sylvanas. More importantly, in Shadowlands they introduced these mysterious first ones that are seemingly the 7 cosmological forces that are above all the others, which makes the big characters of Warcraft like the Titans or the Void Lords just completely useless. Right now, I feel down forever thinking that the old gods or the Titans were important back in Wrath of the Lich King, because after all, they're just minions. There's bigger creatures out.
That's actually sad, because I feel like the old gods, they had like so much potential and stuff. Like, I wish they were actually even more stronger and stuff. Like, yeah, we kill some of them in raids and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like the old gods, each of them should have like had their own expansion instead, right? Like, instead of Shadowlands, we get like an expansion per old god or something. Like, just a whole expansion dedicated to a story that leads to the last raid, where you have to maybe defeat like an old god, but not them being kind of like side bosses or something, not like the main boss, right? Like, that would have been cool, an expansion for each old god.
Just minions, there's bigger creatures out there. Now, to not beat a dead horse with the Shadowlands thing, I think most of you can agree with me here. I do still see some of this disrespect with the source material already happening in the Dragonflight Alpha. To not just be negative, I gotta admit there does seem to be a lot of interesting storylines in Dragonflight, although, once again, a lot of these are retroactively added, such as the Dragon Isles and the Draktyr. However, there is one particular storyline that is just straight out a retcon of the Chronicle that I don't really see how they're going to explain. You might have seen the Centaur that are on the Dragon Isles.
Yeah,
and while they
with
look
new
cool
model.
with all these new models, these guys make absolutely zero sense. In the Chronicle, a bit more than 1,000 years ago, the Centaur were created to Terradras and Zethar, so a combination of an elemental and a son of Cenarius, and these were supposed to be children from a forbidden union, the Cursed Dryads, and that is why they're so aggressive and really weird and ugly looking. Now, suddenly, we discovered that there is an entire tribe of them that has been living on the Dragon Isles for over 10,000 years. Of course, Blizzard actually acknowledged this and made a bit of new lore, saying that they are separate from the other ones and they have been guided there by a wild god. But of course, you think about it, this doesn't really make any sense, because 1,000 years ago, these guys were supposed to be Cursed Dryads made from a really unlikely union from Terradras that recently awoke. So obviously, to explain this, they're going to either...
He was not sober, I'm sure.
They're gonna say this is some sort of a folk myth or something of the sort, which is of course going to disrespect the lore, and once again it is going to make it weak. So I would say that Blizzard does in fact unfortunately disrespect their own lore quite a bit, and it isn't really a controversial statement.
Am I the only one that feels that way, or do you guys sometimes also think that instead of getting like new expansions and like it continues like that, we get like a World of Warcraft remastered with like everything HD and stuff and like cool graphics? I don't mean like a WoW Classic, but like a WoW Remastered, where we get like maybe some more quests or some more stretched out quests of like older areas, and also with those centaurs here and stuff, right, with the Dryads, and they get like new models, the zones get reworked, our characters get reworked, and we have like super modern HD graphics, and the quests are a bit more fleshed out, but are the same ones, like a remaster. I think that would have also been really great. I'm not sure if they ever will do that, but that would be cool, like a World of Warcraft 2 or World of Warcraft Remastered.
Of course, going to disrespect the lore, and once again, it is going to make it weak. So I would say that Blizzard does,
I think the old
in
stories
fact,
have
unfortunately
potential
disrespect their own lore quite a bit, and it isn't really a controversial statement to say whatsoever. To this, Battle for Azeroth was without doubt the biggest offender, and Shadowlands, but I really do hope that this trend doesn't continue in Dragonflight and that they have learned from their mistakes. Thank you for watching.
Probably
check
they
out
did,
Cinematic Warriors
actually.
Replayable by clicking on the screen, and check out Doran's Academy for videos on real.
Right, let's give this one a thumbs up. I think they did, like Blizzard did learn from some of the mistakes, because there was a decline in player population and active player count and all that kind of negative feedback they received from freaking magazines, from a lot of creators and all that. Like, if you get to a point where you get like a lot of negative feedback for years, and you then also sell your company and somebody buys your company for a large amount of money, especially like those that are not behind it, like freaking Microsoft, I'm sure they will make sure, and they will double, triple, 4 times check everything is according to plan and is working out well, so the game gets more popular, because otherwise they wasted so much money in buying Blizzard, like seriously. So I'm positive that we're getting better expansions. Dragonflight will not be like Shadowlands, it will be better. I already seen a bit of Dragonflight, looks nice. So yeah, I'm positive it will be good. And do they disrespect lore? I think, in my opinion, it's more like stuff gets old, people forget about it and such. But yeah guys, if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. And I will see you guys next time.